Welcome everyone. This right here, right now, is the joy of being a live stream coming to you live from Brooklyn, New York. And if you're joining us anywhere other than twitch.tv/deepmindfulness, please come on over. This is where we have all of our fun little details, folks. I don't know if you know, this is our new setup. You probably can't tell because all the time I spent was actually on the back end. So from your perspective, it looks exactly the same. The only difference is now I'm looking down, not looking over. The camera's over here. So I got to remember that the camera's over there. The camera's over there. The camera's over there. Folks, very lovely to have you here. I am delighted as folks begin to roll in. So, how goes it? How is life? Let's see. Teeny tiny before. It's laggy. I know the video's laggy. I had the same thing, but I can't figure out why. Because I can't figure out why. The video is laggy, but it's laggy on my end. I see it as laggy. Usually it's laggy on your end, not my end. I could restart the program, but that seems kind of a little bit much. A bit much, folks. A little bit much. Muy muchache, as the people who can't speak Spanish might say. Okay, let's see here. Where are we? Where is everybody at? Oh, we got Rory joining us from Kingston, Ontario. That reminds me, actually, the course Rory's going to be in. Oh, sorry, I just blew your cover, Rory. Hopefully that's okay. The course that many people will be in, maybe Rory, I don't know if he wants to even do that kind of thing, but the course is full, wildly full. In fact, it was so full that the last time we were here talking about it, it was actually full. And I made a total mistake. So here's the thing, it ends up, and a bunch of people got really annoyed, sort of rightfully so. It ends up that something went wrong with the sheet that was showing people, like, the sheet that was capturing people, something went wrong, and it split it, and we couldn't find the second one. It didn't even tell us there was a second one, so we just thought, oh man, registration is slowed down. And the weird thing was some people kept appearing on the other sheet, so it was like, oh, registration just slowed down pretty dramatically. But then Raquel found this other sheet and was like, we are completely full, which is like, lucky we found it in time and it didn't get overbooked, but which is good. We thought about opening up a third unit of the class. We're doing 2 already, and we're like, I think we should just pause for now. Oh, so therefore, we are doing a half-day retreat on the very topics. We're going to do a free half-day retreat. Everyone is welcome. Half-day retreat for you. Half-day retreat for me. Let's see here. Beep, boop, 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 boop. Okay, calendar. Okay, if you want updates on it, you can go to the same web address, which is... it's the 20th, June 20th, half-day retreat. Lovely half-day retreat. So June 20th half-day retreat, the time is 11:30 a.m. till 4 p.m. So join us there. The video will not be laggy, but it'll be really fun. Okay, here, Nick says it's cool, maybe that hideous Windows operating system is eating all the resources as usual. Do I have something weird open? I've been playing VR. So maybe that's it? Oh, no. I don't see anything weird open. Is VR open? Nope. Okay, Summer has finally arrived in Colchester. That's great. I'm glad that it's actually getting nice there. It's getting nice here now and then, too. Yeah, half-day retreat's going to be fun. Hopefully the timing will work out for folks. Okay, folks, new rule. If you folks don't remind me, if you don't remind me to water my plant here, it's on you, okay? It's not on me. That's you. No, I forgot to water the plant. It was getting pretty haggard. It's so cute. See how it's growing like this, straight out this direction? It's growing towards the light, which is so sort of like sweet and sort of sad that the plant is like, the only light it actually gets is like a fake sunlight, but it works. So, hey, that is what it is. We had snow in May, first time in 20 years. Well, listen, that means something. I don't know what that means. Yeah, exactly. Nick, by the way, is the name of the plant in large part because Nick is such a great person, and Nick is also 1 second here. Sorry, I was asking my wife for something. Water, precisely. She doesn't. That's what reminded me of it. Nick was like, "Oh, can I give the plant water?" And I was like, "I want water." I didn't know what you're talking about. So okay, folks, very excited today. We're going to be meditating for about 25 minutes. Another freestyle meditation, and this is how this game works. You tell me your questions, challenges, difficulties, interests, hobbies, aptitudes, interests. I said interests. All of that stuff. Hello from London. You let me know your questions or whatever's coming up, and we will answer that question in the form of guided meditation. And then we'll talk about it. One question I thought I might answer, actually that I saw someone else have, which is if you're doing a heart practice and negative thoughts arise, what might you do? What might you do? It's a good question. There's many things you might do, and there's actually a whole set of things that you can do. And so there's, thank you, there's a variety of tactics we can take. I'll give you the short sort of explanation now. One is to just ignore those thoughts. You know, you're saying the phrase, negative, negative, ignore, and you get good at ignoring, and it slowly starts to deconstruct those thoughts. Another one is to directly deconstruct those thoughts. What are they built out of? Is it seeing, hearing, or feeling? You know, what is the actual structure? To notice that and say, okay, there's this much seeing. Just notice the seeing and like observe it until it breaks down those thoughts. Another one is what you might do off the cushion, which is something I've done a number of times, which is called a resentment inventory. And a resentment inventory is something where you're going to write. It's a formal thing that they do, and different communities will do this kind of thing. But you write down every person that you resent. You write down every. Then you write down under them on each line the thing that they did, and you want to be pretty not minimal, but just like don't repeat yourself. 3 or 4 is probably max for each person. What they did, and then after that you write how it affected you. If it affected you financially, personally, emotionally, like how it affected you. And there's no real relief at this point. It's just like agonizing. It gets like worse and worse. And then you flip it and you say, what if I were 100% responsible for this? Or rather, if there's responsibility for what happened, and it's like 99% them, you ignore that entire part and you say, I'm going to take this 1% and make it 100%. So you're not ignoring what they've done, but you're taking responsibility for that 1%, because that's all we can take responsibility for. And then we say what defenses came up that caused this situation. 9 times out of 10, it's something, some form of arrogance, inconsiderateness, dishonesty, set of things like this. And doing that and then focusing on that final column of the list whenever this resentment comes up deconstructs the resentment weirdly, powerfully, very well. So that's one option. The third option is one of the things we've been using lately, which is that we've been using the multiple self model, and we'll discuss that a little bit more after. Maybe we'll do that. But we'll discuss that more after the guidance, because we're getting a little long-winded here, a little long in the wind. I know everyone's blown away by this new microphone. I'm sure you can tell that there's a difference, and it doesn't just sound exactly like the other one, but oh boy, there is. So folks, we're going to get started now. So when you're ready, finding a nice comfortable position that you can maintain for the duration of the sit. If you if you are not used to staying still, well, this will be a little bit of a challenge, but that's okay. It happens sometimes. And the other key is that if you have a background in trauma, you don't want to force yourself to stay still. You want to, try it, and then if it feels like too much, you just let yourself move. Meditation can be re-traumatizing, and we want to make sure that we don't do that. So folks, we will begin now. So find your nice comfy positions. It's so funny. Check. Yeah, it's lagging. even here. Okay, we'll begin. Beginning by taking a few comfortable deep breaths, just feeling the body rise and fall. Beginning by sweeping through the body to be sure we're not holding any undue tension. So starting at the top of the head, relax the brow. Relax the muscles behind the eyes, letting the eyes themselves succumb to gravity by just a millimeter or so. Relaxing the face, letting it go smooth. Relaxing the back of the tongue, allowing the jaw to go slack. Relaxing the neck and the shoulders. The upper arms, elbows, forearms, wrists, and relaxing the hands. Allowing the body to breathe as it will. Noticing the natural tightening and relaxing as the breath just comes and goes. Relaxing the belly and the lower back, the hips and upper legs, the knees and calves, the ankles, and relaxing the feet. And taking a moment to find awareness. So, rather than pinpointing any particular part of our experience, we gather a collection of experiences. This is a good way to locate the experience of awareness. One way we can do this is by gathering all of the sensations of the body. not trying to capture every one. More trying to get a general survey, a general pool of material. Or if we find it easier to use more material, we could capture all of sound or all of our sense of space or all of these together. But whatever's simple, I like to go with just all of the body sensations as one large collection. If we find ourselves drawn to any particular sensation, just letting that be experienced in the context of the rest of the body sensations. And we're going to choose a kind phrase. Perhaps it's, may you be safe, or may you be healthy, or happy, whatever we'd like. But we're going to pick one that for us feels a little over the top. Maybe I love you so much, no matter what. Something that is a little more than we might normally say to ourselves. The point being to elicit a bit of resistance. Just see what happens. The phrase that works for me today is, I love you, I love you, I love you so much. And if your phrase seems cheesy or silly, for today's practice, that's actually helpful. So picking something that is closer to that side of the spectrum. Continuously repeating the phrase and directing it towards our experience of ourselves. The resistance that may arise for some can come in the form of emotional, as though the physical body were pushing back against this phrase or this experience with yuckiness or anger, annoyance. So keeping the phrase going to investigate if there's an emotional pushback. pushback could come in the form of mental audio. Words in the mind that are not the phrase, or are the phrase but a different tone of voice. And often these will come along with them some emotional content as well. A frustrated mind might say, "This is stupid." Something like this. And that's fine, just starting to learn what the pushback experience is like. Not trying to ignore it. This is all just nature, watching nature. And of course, the pushback can come in the form of distraction, the mind simply being more distracted than it might otherwise, or in the form of body discomfort coming to the foreground more than it might normally. Just the body-mind trying to get us to move away from discomfort any way that it can. And for now, we're going to allow a little bit of this pressure to remain, just staying conscious. Now, let's let go of any mental audio. Let's let go of saying anything. And again, see if we can take in the entire picture of the experience of the body, or if we'd like to take in the entire picture of all of our sensing, just gathering a soft snapshot of our whole experience at this moment, the resistance, the momentum of the practice, any distractions that seem to be arising. Just, this is a capture of my reality at this moment. And so this will likely put us in touch with awareness. Awareness is the part of our experience that simply knows whatever is arising. We can attend to the sensations in our left hand. We can listen to the sounds in the room or space that we're in. We can look at the darkness of closed eyes. And each of these sensations is different. But in each case, they are known by the mind. Awareness is this knowing. Awareness also doesn't have a preference. So from that position of awareness, we're going to reconnect with this resistant experience. Checking in if it feels like I am resistant, the self is arisen and the mind has identified with that self. Or if we're simply aware that resistance is occurring. Perhaps even a self is occurring. And the mind is simply aware of these experiences. Neither is better, just being honest. Does it feel like this is happening to me? Or does it feel like it's simply occurring in this body-mind? And using our intuitive awareness, finding the phrase, finding the words that would soothe the resistance that's arising. Often the needs of the part that's arising are very simple. So perhaps the words that come from awareness are simply, I hear you. I hear you. Or I'm with you. Or whatever intuition says would help soothe that part. Using the intuition rather than using the mind. And noticing that we have instant feedback. The self will simply be soothed, even if it's very slightly. We will directly feel a sense of relief or a sense of the system settling down. We may even find that there's a way that we can hold that experience, to hold the resistant clinging or aversion that's arising. That doesn't need words, and yet satisfies the need of that self to be known, to be heard, to be safe. Just looking for the experience which is relieving, letting that be our guidepost. Knowing that even a bit of subtle relief is significant. Now, without letting go of the momentum that we've cultivated, we're going to use the same intuition to allow this part of us that's resistant, that's more challenged, less resourced, to gently speak. Find whatever words it might say to express its underlying need. At this moment, that less resourced self for me is saying, I'm scared. And simply meeting that with whatever words or way of attending would help soothe that voice that arises. The needs of these less resourced selves are often very childlike. A need for safety, a need for care, a feeling that things aren't fair. All quite natural. Healthy, ordinary human needs. In this way, we cultivate a dialogue. And in this way, we find our own personal loving-kindness phrase. One that doesn't need us to ignore the resistance. One that is compassionate enough to allow, to attend to, and to care for all the different parts of ourself. In this way, cultivating this kind awareness as a kind of home. A kind of meta self. That we can look to and rely on. And staying with the practice, staying in stillness, allowing a tiny bit of light to enter the eyes, eventually allowing the eyes to rest on a single point as they fully open, re-establishing or cultivating any contact with this kind awareness, letting it hold not only that resistant experience, but letting it also hold all that we're experiencing now in this moment. And letting that kind awareness and our experience of it right now be the great teacher that shows us how we might bring this practice into every aspect of our life. Again, looks like the video has remained a little laggy. It's okay. So what was that experience like? I'm going to give us an opportunity to ask any questions you have. We're going to open up our Zoom here. One key is that I should probably open Zoom myself. When the Zoom session is ready, the teacher will remember to turn Zoom on. Okay. So making any adjustments you need to allow your body to be comfortable. Let's see here. Okay. If folks would prefer not to be visible on Zoom or be audible, you can feel free to... Oopsus. What was that? Oh. Just type in your report. What was that meditation like? Challenges, difficulties, curiosities, those kind of things. What was that like? It was quite lovely for me, quite relieving. Had a very emotional last few days. Just life being life. Monica says, the loving awareness felt like the softest flower that blooms inward instead of out. Wow, that is quite a quote. That's lovely. I felt very deeply, and I felt very deeply, and lots of resistance was released. That's lovely, and that's great. And sometimes for some people, resistance will not be released, and that's okay too. It's not a problem. I think that's one of the things is that, I mean, I mention this all the time, but in meditation, we turn all of these things into problems. Self is a problem. Clinging and aversion, those are problems. Well, unfortunately, that's typically an example of more selfing and more clinging and aversion. So that's not going to get rid of them, and we don't really want to get rid of them. So the key is actually what I think about is like what Shinzen will say is like love them to death, and death simply means really, really accepting what's happening. Nick says so many resistant selves not accepting being cared for any emotion at all. By the way, what do you think about attachment theory? Well, I'll get into attachment theory in a minute, and I think quite a bit about it. It's a central tool in the way that I think about generally human beings and this material in general. It's one very good lens that I like. So what's good about this practice, or one thing that's good about it, among many other wonderful practices in this world, is that when resistance arises, it's actually not a problem, it's an opportunity. Typically, when we experience resistance in a practice, our job is like ignore it. Like ignore it. I'm a good meditator. I'm just going to focus over here. And that can be really self-denying and really denying of the pain that's actually quite legitimate often. One thing we do want to be careful of is the self-generated emotion. So yesterday, a lot of emotion was coming up. I've had a long, crazy history, lots of childhood trauma, that kind of thing. And so a lot of emotion was coming up, but I had to be very careful to not let the mind go into a thinking loop, because the mind could just go into this loop of like, everything's terrible. Why is it always? And if I did that, it would self-escalate, which is not really what I wanted. I want to feel the emotion that was already there rather than have my mind whip up more emotion. And especially if we're experiencing resentment, that's really what that is. It's this very interesting combination of clinging and aversion, because we're clinging to the thought and the person, but we also have aversion to that thought and person at the same time, and that's agonizing. It's just like, I'm so mad. And so part of our job is to recognize that there is a self that is doing that and see if we can meet its underlying needs. And if it's helpful, the inventory thing that I mentioned before the stream is it comes from recovery communities. And the general sentiment there is that resentment is more deadly than like anything else. It's one of the most deadly things. So just know that if you're experiencing this, I'm speaking to the person who asked the initial question, but offline, if resentment is coming to the foreground, just know that it's a very serious experience, and if we can't escape from that, it'll rule our lives. It'll completely rule our lives, and the world will be one which is against us and fighting us and that kind of thing. So let me see. I think I just thought of a way to fix the camera stutter, but we'll see. Let's see. Ahaha. Oh, that's odd. Maybe that nope, that didn't fix a damn thing, but now I'm giant. One sec, I'm going to try to fix this. Okay, well, I'm a little laggy. Well, it looks a little better, maybe slightly better. Okay, just got to fix the size of this thing because it's gigante. Here we go. Lovely. Okay, folks. So, beep, boop, boop, boop. No one's joining us on Zoom. That's fine. No big deal. I'm not hurt. Just kidding. Okay. Nick then asks, "What's your what do you think about attachment theory?" Nick, let me ask you before we jump into that. Are you familiar with attachment theory? Do you know what it is? And are you just familiar with the general parts, or just curious? You've heard about it, that kind of thing. Just curious, a little bit of background. What do I think about it is a great place to start, but it'd be helpful to have a little more info. 2020 CL says, "I used a phrase. It brought tears to my eyes." That's so sweet. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. That's very vulnerable, and I understand that that's not always easy. Let's see, brought tears to my eyes and release. Thank you. Well, I know Nick says, yeah, generally. Yeah, I know you're speaking generally, and that's what I'm talking about. I know about it, but not in depth. Okay, because the thing is, I have to define it. I don't know what you know, so I'm going to have... Okay, that's fine. Attachment theory is a theory that was developed after World War I, maybe? One or two. Where London was bombed. It was not bombed in World War I. World War II. Wait, let me ask Raquel so I don't get this wrong.
In the 60s.
Yeah, okay. So it's World War II and came up in the 60s. So they thought that if children were separated from their families in London, they take them and put them in boarding homes to be away from the bombing, they would be better off. But what they actually found was that children who were with their families, even though they're being bombed, terrorized every day, were less, let's say, they're more mentally sort of stable and balanced than the kids who had been sent away. And it was very strange, like a generation of children had been sent away. So it's like, what's the story here? So this psychologist, Balby, what's his first name? James? John Balby, thank you. Raquel's listening in the background. She's like my Saranac over there in the background, correcting all my mistakes. John Balby studied the children who had been interned, and started to notice that there was these sort of different ways of relating to the world that occur with trauma. And what he realized and sort of and theorized, but with not just like pontificating, but doing a lot of study. His background, I think, was actually in, was it ornithology or either way, was studying what?
Ethology, studying animal behavior.
Ethology, okay, so it's generally animal behavior. Raquel should just come over here and tell this stuff. I thought it was just birds, but it's general animal behavior. And his theory, attachment theory, was that attachment and the connection with other human beings is as vital a need as a need for food or a need for shelter. It's a fundamental human need. And up until that point, the model for psychology was very much that one individual we're all autonomous, and the height of individual freedom was being individually sort of liberated and being strong and sort of having a independent ego, effectively, like a strong independent ego. So the primary unit of psychology, from the perspective of kind of Freudian, or this, broadly speaking, was this idea that the individual is the primary unit of psychology. What attachment theory introduced was actually the primary unit of psychology is the bond. and that the individual is the experimental, exploratory side of the bond. And that if the individual didn't have a sense that it could return to a bond easily, if need be, then it would become alienated and isolated, and have one of these sort of three big categories of ways of being maladaptive. So we have four categories then. One category, we'll just call it secure. We'll just call it this. This is standard language. We'll call it secure. That means that there's the person, as a child or later on as an adult, they trust their internal sort of decision making, and they trust the world that it will meet their needs. So the world is safe, and they can trust themselves. And this is borne out because they had a caretaker who could be there consistently enough, like we're doing with this kind, compassionate self, that can be there consistently enough that they can rely on, that no matter what happens, they can always return back to it. So that's part of why cultivating this kind awareness is extremely important in healing a lot of our challenges. And there's a theory that goes around that I like quite a bit, that dark night material on the path is actually us hitting maladaptive attachment strategy, or sometimes just developmental trauma and emotion held in the body. So I'll answer your question about Daniel Brown soon, and yes, I have heard of it. So for four strategies, one is secure. I can trust myself, or I can rely on myself. I can trust the world. And the other three are combinations of those. And it's helpful to remember that these are all normal. And if you identify with any of these are all normal and repairable, and it's not the end of the world. It does take a fair amount of intention and intervention, support, community support, and know that each relationship is different. So we might be fully secure with our loved one, or our our partner, but we might be insecure in one of these three ways with our friends or with our bosses, or this kind of thing. So each relationship has this different sort of general structure. Let's see. So this is I find this very interesting. So one strategy is I cannot trust myself, but I can rely on the world. So that's one where I'm like, I don't know the answer. Maybe you know, and we all know, and we all have experiences like this. And we all know people like this, where it's like, I don't know. What do you think? Like, maybe you should decide, right? Or for us, you maybe have the experience of somebody calls and we're waiting for a call back or a text back. And we're like, why didn't they text back? And I've had relationships before where someone is like, this is called preoccupied, we'll call it preoccupied is one of the terms, the one that I like. And they'll be like, where are you? I texted you an hour ago. Why aren't you? And like, they're often looking for details to prove that they want proof of trust, that they can trust. And on the very far end of this is like borderline personality, which actually the person that I was in a relationship with had borderline, and they were just like constantly need a reassurance, and nothing would reassure them. So that's highly, highly preoccupied. On the other side, secure, I'm trying to like not block the camera. Secure, we could call this preoccupied. Can't trust self, can trust world. So the world is going to solve my problems. Will you solve my problem? Are you my mommy? Like those kind of things. Not uncommon. Good chunk of society. We're in the double-digit percentiles of those folks. Next one we could call, I can't trust the world, but I can trust myself. This is one where the world has failed so thoroughly, right? This is often where a caretaker has been so consistently unavailable that the infant child just goes inside and is like, screw the world, I'm going to do this on my own. Don Draper, if you've ever seen Mad Men, is a great example of someone who's in this category, which we'll call dismissive. Great explorers, right? Because they trust themselves. Great explorers of the world, very creative, very commanding, often very charismatic. And but often those people are very charismatic. They don't care about you because you're the world. And because they can trust themselves and not the world, morality's maybe not such a big deal. We have this with some, these larger than life characters who are like, I'll do whatever I want, and then, they just do whatever they want. So there's this sense that they can trust themselves, but not the world, and so they can kind of do whatever they want. On the far end of that spectrum would be something like, narcissistic personality disorder, and if you're really, really far in that system, you become elected as president of the United States. No offense to anyone who's a supporter of that person, but even if you're a supporter, I think maybe they can't. Maybe admitting that there's a lot of narcissism there. Maybe I'm wrong. It seems to me that this person really thinks a lot about themselves, and it seems like they view the world from the lens of how it affects me, and how everything that's being said is a sort of a personal affront, and that they can trust themselves. They're supremely, effective, and that they need to telegraph that constantly, because of course it's a coping mechanism. So they constantly have to say, I'm the greatest, I'm the greatest, I'm the greatest. Because, people who really think that the greatest truly and truly believe that don't really need to say it. They just sort of live it. So they need to constantly project that, and they need to hear that from the outside, I'm the greatest. And they don't care about anybody. There's just this sort of sense of like, if it's good for me, it's good. Like, I'll just do whatever I want. So I apologize if that was offensive. I'm happy to have that conversation if that's your political affiliation and that did not work well for you, because I'm trying to realize that I have all the same arrogance that is creating problems in our country. So happy to chat about that. Beep, boop, boop. Okay, so that's 3. Now there's one left that you might be sort of obviously or figuring out already, which is that someone who can't trust themselves and they can't trust the world. Often when you bring this one up, everyone says that's me, but it might not be. The sense of can't trust myself, can't trust the world is like, I can't rely on me because I don't know what to do, and I can't rely on this person. So what this likely has to do with is an infant who had a caretaker who was both very intermittently available, but also dangerous. So they'd go and seek help from the caretaker, and they'd go and they find the caretaker, and when they'd see them, they'd realize, oh, this person is dangerous. I can't go near them. So they'd be seeking outside, like, I can't, something's wrong. I need something outside of myself, but outside of myself is terrifying. So what this often ends up being is someone who feels very, very stuck. And hiding and sort of avoiding and having a hard time making decisions can be a very central sort of line of that strategy. So just to normalize these, in general, I tend towards the preoccupied side. In general, I hope I'm not going to get in trouble for this. I'm sure I'm not, because Raquel has said it's okay before. Raquel will tend towards that the last version, the fearful avoidant, where it's hard to make decisions, these kind of things. Now, keep in mind, these are all normal strategies. These are all within the normal range. And, Raquel's getting a PhD, she's running a business, she's a, elegant speaker and writer. And so it's not that these things aren't insurmountable at all. And it's not that they control our lives. It's just that that's what will arise. So generally that's sort of the way I, tend to talk about that. And we can have the different aspects of each one of these at any given time. And it's just a nice lens through which to observe these things. And so getting back to your question, so yes, I know about Dan Brown's work, and actually, Raquel and I are talking soon about how we can, because basically we want to be able to talk about it. And an old teacher of ours and friend, George Haas, actually works with Dan Brown and does his ideal parent. What is it? Raquel, what is it called?
Ideal parent figure, I think.
Oh, ideal parent figure protocol or something. So he does that actual work. So that's very cool. There is definitely an overlap between that and what we're doing here in the multiple self model, aka internal family systems. Do you have a good test for attachment theory? There's a test called the AAI, which you could probably find someone to administer for you online. And I think you can do it virtually. It's the adult attachment interview, and you could have someone, and just make sure whoever does it is coded. What is it called, babe? They're coded for proficiency.
Coherent. Wait, what?
No, the person who can run an AAI.
Oh, they have to be a reliable coder. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, they have to be considered a reliable coder. So that's the words that mean they actually have been, they've been established to be able to do this. Otherwise, there are just various tests you can kind of try to take online. But I think part of the premise, I think the best test is to check for yourself. When you're anxious, when things get hectic or hard, is there a sense of, well, I can trust myself? And the world will meet my needs. Relationships come easy. The sense of a need for a bond and connect with other people is like obvious. Of course, I want relationships, and I have them. They come to me relatively easily. On the other hand, is there a sense that I can't trust myself, and I need someone outside of me. I need a relationship. God, where's my relationship? I need it. Searching, but often pushing people away when they seem like they might not be able to meet our needs, or there's some hint that like there's some little chink in the armor, and we're like, how dare you? People who are highly jealous often will fit into that category. Or slightly jealous, that can be there. Or is there a sense of like, I can't trust myself, I can't trust the world, and I'm sort of stuck in this limbo? Often that's the third one. Or sorry, that's the third one. The second one was dismissive. And so, do you have the experience that you beep boop boop beep 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 beep? You can trust yourself. I mean, often this is less common because people who have this experience, they often just won't be involved in any kind of self-help. They'll just be like, no, I got this. So that's a question is, are you like, I got this, and other people, whatever, like I'm the one in charge. Like that can often be the case. If you ever want a real masterclass in what attachment strategies look like, the show Big Little Lies, which I tell you, it's actually a very good show. It looks pretty cheesy, but it's actually quite good. Check out that show. Really great masterclass, and it's the whole structure of the show is about when people with preoccupied attachment strategies like come into conflict, and then what happens after that. So two people are preoccupied, and then there's a whole variety of sort of others, and there's basically one, maybe two characters in the whole show who are secure. If you can find out who's secure in that show, let me know. If you've seen the show, let me know now in the chat. Maybe we'll just give some spoilers. What the hell? Spoilers alert. Who is it in that show who is the one secure attachment strategy? Avoidant dismissive seems nice fit for me. Well, that's helpful to know. And so the labels that I typically use is preoccupied, fearful avoidant, meaning it's both fearful and avoidant, and you can call it either avoidant or dismissive. So yeah, I can give you pop cultural sort of identities of these different sort of manifestations. Monica says, talk with Dan Brown on attachment theory. Oh, lovely. Thank you so much for sharing that, Monica. Lovely. I'll take a look at that. It's a 10-minute meditation. Sounds like a compliment. It's absolutely a compliment. Yeah, absolutely. And babe, what's the name of the well, you can actually just search it up if somebody doesn't mind. The person who invented internal family systems, which is what the multiple self model, Richard Schwartz, which is what that's based on. He has some great videos as well. But I got to check out this Dan Brown. I mean, I know him, but I got to dig in a little. Yeah, awesome. Dan's a pretty, extensive meditator, and he is in the Vajrayana tradition, I believe. Yeah, excellent. Okay, folks. So, if there are no other questions, reports, anything like that, we're going to call it. And let's see. And I have good news. In fewer than 48 hours, we're going to be back here. And plus, we have the retreat coming up in about a month. Boop, 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 boop. Right now, you can sign up for the retreat data there. Feel free to, if you're already on our email list, don't worry about it, but that's where you can sign up to find out about the upcoming retreat. I think it's June 20th, 11:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern. Sign-ups and registration will be coming soon. And, okay, folks, so I have a wish for you. The wish is as follows. My wish for you is that you are able to connect with those you love. Connect with those who are your support network. Let them be your support network and be part of your own care system. Know that there are many parts of us, not just the parts that are having a difficulty, and that over time we can learn to rely on, train, and cultivate the parts of us that will always be there when we need support, will always be there when others need support. Just to care for each other, be kind. reach out and make sure to have fun. As always, lovely. Have fun like you're one of the minions from the Minions movies, which I've never seen. Just have a good time. Can't wait to see everyone soon. Have a lovely 70 and a half hours. Till we see you soon. Okay, folks. Bye.